Welcome back to Prophecy of Cinema. In this episode, we're going to continue our deep dive into The Running Man, and this time we're focusing on perhaps its wildest prediction yet, that the US economy would collapse, that the dollar would become so devalued that it would no longer be worth the paper it's printed on. In the novel, this collapse turns everyday citizens into desperate scavengers. Sound far-fetched? Maybe. But history shows that currencies do collapse, and desperate people will do anything to survive. And if you look around today, there are signs that we may already be headed in that direction. In the Running Man novel, the US economy has collapsed by 2025, and the current regime has replaced the original currency with new dollars. These new dollars are digitally tracked and the only form of money accepted for most goods and services. Our protagonist, Benjamin Richards, has almost no access to new dollars. His old dollars are worthless, so devalued that he can't even afford basic necessities, let alone health care for his sick daughter. Prophetic theme number 4. Desperation economy. In the book's opening, his wife, who's been forced into prostitution for wealthy rich people around town, suggests to Ben that maybe he just tries to hustle harder, and maybe that way he can help save their sick daughter. But Ben snaps on her, because in this world, everyone's already been hustling this whole time, and they're all exhausted from it. Hustling and the idea of hustle culture at this point has gotten nobody nowhere. And so he decides the only thing left to do is to go downtown and line up for the games. The US economy in this world is in such dire condition that masses of unemployed people volunteer to be hunted on live television, not for fame, but because they're out of options entirely. The prize money here could lift them out of bone-crushing poverty or save a dying family member, and the only other choice is to just keep hustling endlessly and keep starving. And that's the world we're rapidly approaching. A desperation economy where survival is gamified and suffering is monetized, where people are stripped of nearly everything, and yet the powerful still find a way to prey on them.
And now, back to climbing for dollars.
There's a repeating historical pattern when economies begin to fail. The people at the top begin to get much richer, and the people at the bottom suffer the most. And the middle class, they start falling fast. Industries that once supported stable jobs get wiped out by automation, outsourcing, and economic shocks. Suddenly, twice as many people are fighting for the same handful of unstable, low-paying jobs. Wages stay flat. Costs and living expenses explode. Out of that imbalance, a new kind of economy emerges, one that feeds on desperation. Today, it doesn't look like death matches, not yet, but the decline is well underway, and the signs are everywhere. It looks like college graduates fighting for the same low-wage jobs as those without degrees. It looks like a generation poor, more anxious, and worse off than their parents. It looks like skyrocketing rent, while home ownership drifts out of reach. It looks like wages shrinking, prices of oil and food climbing, stable jobs vanishing overnight, and personal debt piling up as everyone expects things to get better in the coming years, but they get worse instead. The games haven't started, but the desperation has. You see, the truth about this corrupt system is, it doesn't want you to find a way to thrive. Instead, it needs you to stay just broke enough so that you keep hustling endlessly. You're told that it's your fault if you can't keep up, that anyone who fails just didn't try hard enough. Too much avocado toast. But if you stop, well, there's always someone more desperate and more ready to take your place. It's not just collapse, it's collapse disguised as opportunity. And this idea of old dollars being replaced by new dollars, that's not just some sci-fi plot point that Stephen King came up with. That might be coming to our world too. After a real-world economic collapse, a new authority, like a fusion of corporate and government power, could roll out a fully controlled digital currency. Access to those new dollars would become a symbol of privilege and compliance. Old dollars, they would become worthless, may be still only good on the street and the black market. By making the new currency the only legal tender, the regime could reward loyalty and punish dissent. They would essentially start cutting off access to food, shelter, or medicine, or food for people that speak out against them. Historically speaking, we've seen this story before. It happened to Germany in the 1920s, the Soviet Union in the 1990s, Zimbabwe in the 2000s, and Venezuela in the 2010s. Each collapsing economy here replacing its currency in a desperate attempt to regain control. The Running Man saw this coming, and it asked, what happens when the only way to survive is to perform for the powerful? And the answer is exactly the world that we're walking into now. Could the U.S. economy really collapse like Stephen King predicted in The Running Man back in 1982? Well, the answer is yes. This is something that I've personally been concerned with, over the last 15 years. As of now, in 2025, the national debt has crossed $37 trillion, and thanks to his so-called big, beautiful bill, we're on track to hit $40 trillion by next year. And the CBO says that it could exceed $50 trillion by 2033 if current policies continue. That'll be when some of the X-Men movies finally come out, I think. The truth is, you can't just keep stacking up trillions of dollars in debt with no end in sight. Economists warn that at some point, the world will completely just lose faith in the US dollar. And when that happens, we're going to enter a serious reckoning. Other countries are already preparing for this. BRICS nations are exploring alternatives to the US dollar, and foreign investment is shifting. And we, the average American, are being left in the dark, willfully unaware, trapped in this media circus that keeps us concentrated on attacking each other, focused on somehow going back to a nostalgic past of the 1950s. But seriously, if we don't change course quickly, and I mean seriously, this dystopian future that we thought was just some silly science fiction is going to become our new reality. And if you insist on nostalgia for some reason, here's the nostalgia that we actually need. We have to start taxing the wealthy again, like we did before Ronald Reagan gutted the system and gave these massive tax breaks to billionaires. We need to go back to the time before Reagan ended the fairness doctrine and allowed partisan media to make us hate each other. We need to go back to a time when we had a more fair economy that actually funded the promises that the government made to the people. Because if we don't, the Running Man's version of the future isn't just some possibility, it's inevitable. Coming up in the next episode, what happens when fascism reaches its final form? When all media is consolidated and weaponized to control what the public sees, hears, and believes? What happens when truth itself is outlawed and speaking it becomes an act of rebellion? In Part 4, we'll explore how the Running Man predicted the next phase of authoritarianism in America, and we'll track the current events that are bringing this prophecy to fruition. I wrote my own science fiction story. It's called The New World Project, and it's my very first novel, and I'm very excited about it, and I'm excited to tell you guys all about it as we move along. Anyway, I hope that you like, subscribe, and all that, and I hope to see you in our sci-fi future here on this channel.